Then with the last talk on visualization or thinking of a mental object or mental image. What we call nimitta in the Bali language is a mental object used to focus the mind, to give it something to stick to and concentrate on without wandering. This is the main heart of this meditation technique. It is what this meditation technique is known for. It is kind of the distinguishing feature of this meditation technique, is that it uses a nimitta, or this visualized object, used as a concentration object, as an object to hold the focus. Every meditation, if it's to be called a meditation, needs to have something to focus on. Particularly if it's in an Eastern form of meditation, it will be a focused meditation. There are meditations in the West where we don't have an object of focus, like many guided visualizations in the West, which don't have an intention of focusing the mind. But in the Eastern traditions, and particularly in Buddhism, we always have an object of concentration or focus. There are many, many types, even in Buddhism. There is, in fact, traditionally 40 types that in the Lord Buddha's time. But the ones which are particularly popular in Thailand are the mindfulness of breathing, very, very popular, and also this technique of focusing on what's called the aloka kasina, or the light object, a focus on light. But other ones which are traditionally used in Buddhism and used in our technique too are what's called Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, and Sanghanusati, or the recollection of the triple gem, the Buddha behind me, and Dhammanusati, the Dharma is the teaching of the Lord Buddha, but on a subtle level, it is the subtle reality and something we can experience inside for ourselves. And then the Sanghanusati is, Sangha literally means community of monks. Okay, it means the monks. Okay, the community of monks. But there's also a subtle reality to this as well. These together form what we call the triple gem, and these form part of the traditional meditation techniques as well, used as something to focus the mind on. And I'll show you more on that. So when we are thinking about, or when we're going to have an object of focus for the mind, something for it to develop concentration on, there are several choices like I've just described. The first one is a Buddha image, or what's called Buddhanusati. Actually, in the scriptures is one of the techniques which is most lauded and most praised by the Lord Buddha, and very effective and many, many benefits to it. Not so much used in a non-Buddhist environment, so we don't emphasize it in the West. But in Thailand, sure, this is very popular. And so they will recollect a Buddha at the center of their body, whether it be a golden Buddha, for example, like the one we have here, or whether it be a crystal Buddha, which is how it's going to end up looking anyway in the end, which I'll describe a bit more later. It doesn't matter, because in the end it's going to end up like a crystal one anyway. So that's one object which is done. Usually we'll recollect such a thing from the top down. And it might happen that even when you're not recollecting it, you might just see it anyway. And that happens to some people too. It just happens to come up by itself at times. And so it should be said that when we choose a mental object, it's not like in normal world, if you choose a Big Mac, you get a Big Mac, you know. But in the mind, it's not quite like that, you know. You choose one thing, but you get something else. And you can't just like force it to do what you want, okay? So we have to sort of go with what we want, with what's happening inside. For example, maybe we start off with Dhammanusati, or a crystal ball, because the Dhamma inside is an experience. It appears as a crystal ball inside. It's a strange thing, and it's a deep subject which we'll go into much later on a Thursday night, I guess. But that one we are deliberately, both with the Buddha image and with the crystal image, we are tuning into something which is actually already there. But by using a visualized object of it, I mean, we shouldn't try and confuse the visualized object with the real one, but it helps us to tune into, so to speak, what is actually there. And so they're quite deliberately picked out in this way. You'll see in the picture here, we have like a real crystal ball, like the one in front of me here. Not very clear, not very bright or radiant, but then there's examples of it getting clearer, more transparent, and more radiant. So in fact, when we think about a crystal ball like the one in front of us, the one you see, if you get good at meditation, won't be a crystal ball like this one. It'll have light, it'll be shining. So it'll be different to what you're actually originally thinking of. But in practice at the beginning, it might not be. I remember the first time I was recollecting a crystal ball many, many years ago. It had scratches on it and clouds on it, and it was grey and black and white and so on. It was nothing like the perfect crystal ball I was seeing outside. It took a long time to polish it and get it good. So it's something which needs to be accumulated and practiced, and you have to be neutral to whatever you see. But we have a starting point as a crystal ball. Again, this is very classically used. This is a technique which Lomba Wokbat Nam, the founder of this tradition, he used primarily in his teaching, was using the crystal ball technique. And so it is very well known for this. Again, in the West, we don't use this so much in teaching. We tend to emphasize light, sun, moon, and star, which we'll come on to in a minute. Sanganu Sati. This is about our lineage masters. Technically, it could be any monk, but here we have the founder of this meditation tradition, Lomba Wokbat Nam. You can see the golden image on the left there. So many in our tradition do like to, after Lomba passed away, have taken to recollecting Lomba Wokbat Nam himself at the center of the body. Certainly every time I've ever had used it, I've always found it give me a boost, and certainly makes me more delighted when I've seen that more than other things. But it not so much used in the West, but sometimes people just spontaneously see him anyway at the center of the body. So again, whatever you see, you just watch with neutrality. The monk in the middle there is Lompo Tamachio, the abbot of Wat Pho Dhammakaya main center in Thailand, my abbot in Thailand. And so many people use him. He is the disciple of Kunyaya Jan, the nun on the right there. Kunyai was the foremost disciple, foremost meditator of Lomba Wokbat Nam. And then she really had basically one disciple, and that was Lompo Tamachio. Both of them together founded the temple, my temple in Thailand, where I'm from. So these can all be thought of at the center of the body, and sometimes spontaneously seen at the center of the body. Just so if you happen to see them, don't worry about it. Just keep on watching with neutrality. Don't chase them away or anything. But not many Westerners see it, but you never know. Some people do. Mostly we use these in the West. The sun, moon, star. I mean, these are approximations, obviously. What you'll actually see may be slightly different. You know, if you're thinking about the moon, and the moon's got craters, and you know, it's not a perfectly white shape. The one inside is not going to look quite like that, you know. But you'll see some kind of ball of light. You know, you might recollect some kind of ball of light, but it may develop and turn into something else. Okay, so we have a starting point of these things. But either way, sun, moon, or a star, it is light. Okay, it's something that's emitting light. The star, technically, is probably the best one, but it's very difficult as a beginner. But sometimes, when you're very deep in meditation, a star will appear at the very center of whatever you are visualizing. Whatever else you're visualizing, a star appears at the center of it. A little point of light, basically. And that is a kind of a signal that the mind has become very focused, has become single pointed. So it's a good signal that you're very deep in meditation. but you can't really fake your way there, right? But there are other objects you can use. We're quite flexible, particularly nowadays, and particularly in the West, and dealing with bigger, wider audiences about what you use. Because in practice, as long as you visualize it at the center of the body, and that it's kind of pure and uplifting, then it will work, and it will change into something. They'll converge onto the same thing in the end anyway. Whatever you start out with, they'll all end up being one or two things in the end. So we could start with a drop of water, which is something we're familiar with, and clear and transparent, a bit like the crystal ball almost. Yes, coconut. There are some people in Solomon Islands who are meditating, and so they have so many coconuts around, so we teach them, well, okay, you go visualize a coconut. And so the Solomon Islanders find this quite easy to do and got into it. And so they got a very clear coconut, and then the coconut turns into a crystal ball by itself. And that tends to be the way it works out. So yes, if you want to do a coconut, you can. Any kind of fruit, you know, something easy to visualize, we're very familiar with it. And that's something that's very important in visualization, is working with something we can recollect very easily, that is familiar to us. Because in Thailand, Buddha images are very familiar to them. They're very natural for them to think about these things, but not for us. Okay, and crystal ball for many Westerners, I can't visualize crystal ball, I can't think of what that looks like. Okay, start with something that's easy for you, all right? Maybe a football, all right? I've tried it before, okay? I remember when I was first starting out, I would think of snooker balls. I would think of the white ball in snooker or something like that. So you can try those out. With kids, I have them think of ice cream. I taught at primary school and I had them think of vanilla ice cream. Someone said, but I saw chocolate ice cream. Well, that's okay, whatever flavor, all right? You can start out with these things, anything that's easy, familiar, but it won't stay that way anyway. As the mind becomes more focused, it will change. There are some things which you shouldn't use, though, that are inappropriate to be used. And these things are because what we're focusing on will transmit its qualities to us in some extent. And the state of mind will transmit itself to the image. There's an interaction here. So the fact we're focusing on something which is pure, like the Buddha, the Dharma, or the Sangha here, they are having an effect on the mind, making the mind more pure and uplifted and so on. But similarly, when the mind does become more concentrated, more still, more neutral, more pure, it then transforms the image into something that's purer. But if you start thinking about something which is impure, then it's probably not going to do that. So things related to sensual desire, like thinking about your girlfriend at the center of the body or some beautiful woman, that's not going to conduce to stilling the mind, more likely to conduce to fantasy. Objects related to ill will, you know, thinking about a gun at the center of the body is not going to be very positive, right? It's the same kind of principles as with the mantra. You know, we talked about samarahang, very positive. We can use that, or you could use calm, perfectly pure, whatever, but not hate, right? You know, it's the same kind of principle. We're trying to have something which is kind of uplifting and pure. Right? So any color is fine, but transparent is best, just because in the end it's going to end up becoming transparent. As the mind becomes calmer, has less thoughts, the image will become more transparent. As the mind, I've noticed in my experience, as the mind becomes more content and more happy, it tends to get brighter. But there are variations on this, but transparency and brightness and so on will increase over time. Okay, as the mind becomes alert but relaxed, the image might get clearer, greater clarity, see it more clearly. As the mind becomes more steady, it might become more, the picture image maybe become more steady, firmer, not flickering and so on. But these things, you know, they come and go, they go up and down with practice, even within one session. So you have to be neutral. Any size is fine too. It could be, you know, as large as maybe 2 inches. In practice, you might think of it filling up your whole belly. It doesn't really matter. Usually it tends to be, traditionally, the actual Dharma sphere, the real one inside, is described as being the size of the egg yolk, the yolk of an egg. So what's that about? Just over ½ an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch. But in practice, yeah, ping pong ball is fine, tennis ball size is fine, baseball is fine, whatever, okay. Any kind of size is fine. And as I said, you can't really control it anyway. It will choose. And sometimes they expand and another one appears, so whatever. Any angle, but usually we will not focus on something that's outside of ourselves. It's kind of like a golden rule. We might do it only at the very, very beginning, but then we'll move it inside the body on either first base, second base, third base, all the way down to the 7th base, but usually at the 7th base of the mind, the center of the body. This is where we really do all the work. Later on, you'll get more experience with the 7 bases and be able to go through them very quickly, or either just go straight to the 7th base of the mind. And when it's at the 7th base of the mind, that's in the belly. So the viewpoint, most people will have a viewpoint of being above it, looking down on it, okay? But sometimes you're slightly behind it, looking at it. And there's different angles here, right? Certainly when it's something like a Buddha image you're seeing at the center, and I've looked at it from every single angle, right? Don't worry about the angle. Don't be the cameraman, okay? Don't be a director worrying about the angle. You're just like watching it at the cinema. Whatever angle it gives you, you just watch it at that angle. That's important. Don't try and control it or try and look at it from different angles. But in the end, it will end up as top view. It's just the way it works. Similarly with distance, you can look at it from any distance. Normally, there'll be a certain distance between you and the object that you're thinking about. You can't put a number on it, like 2 feet or 1 feet. You can't put a figure on it. But you'll be at some distance from it. But as the mind becomes, you know, very well concentrated, it will zoom into it by itself. It will pull you in towards the image. The image will probably become transparent by this point, and you'll enter the image in the end. You'll go inside of it. So whatever distance, don't worry about it. Just let it happen by itself. But it probably in the end finally will zoom in on it. Whatever happens, be neutral. Don't get excited. Just let it happen. And it will develop in quality. It will become, instead of being like scratched and cloudy, it will become more flawless, perfect, diamond. It goes from like being a glass kind of crystal ball to like crystal to diamond to beyond diamond, beyond anything that's in this world, beyond any. Even the brightness can go beyond the brightness of the sun, beyond the million suns. There's no limits to these kind of qualities that can be developed in meditation. So just in terms of the image, these things can happen. But again, patient, neutral. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't have any desire for these things. But they will happen over time anyway. Thinking of this object, when we recollect it or think of it, we have to recollect it softly. This is absolutely the most important, softly. At the beginning, you're not really sure of what it means to be softly think of something, okay? But you'll know it when you do it wrongly, okay? When you do it wrongly, instead of softly and gently, you sort of trying to make the image. This is what most people fall foul of, is they try to make the image steady. They try to make the image clear. When we look at something with our normal physical eyes, right, if I take my glasses off and try and look at you, you're all blurred now, right? So the way it normally works is when you see something blurred is you squint at it to try and work out what they look like. We then do that mentally with the image, because the image will start out blurred. And it takes time and stillness of mind for it to come into focus. time and stillness of mind to come into focus. But what we automatically instinctively do is mentally squint at it, mentally focus on it, try to make it sharper, clearer. And that creates tension. It creates tension, it makes you not so relaxed, makes you too overly focused, many things. So at this point, you want to, well, either cease, okay, just stop, go back to the mantra, go back to relaxing the body and so on. But next time around, try and do it with more neutrality here. Should be comfortable. You should just be doing it in a natural way, as an ordinary way. When we say natural or ordinary, I mean here, like, think of your mum, think of your dad, think of your dog or your cat, neighbor next door. Okay, just now their images flashed in your mind for a brief second. Okay, just like that, normal, natural, comfortable. You're not trying to make them clear, you're not trying to make them stay or anything. That's the way you do it at the beginning, very comfortably. And then you do it again, 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 like this. So think of your mother or your gran, and again, think of them again. Okay. The pace of that will be, it will vary. You start out kind of sporadic, maybe quite a few gaps in between, and it will slowly get into a rhythm, okay, a natural rhythm. If it's too fast, you might get too alert. If it's too slow, you might drift off. But you can use this speeding up or slowing it down to maintain a balance between relaxation and mindfulness. Okay, getting that balance there is quite important. You also want to do it confidently. The mind responds to your attitude. So if you have an attitude of, I can't do this, you can't do it. If I can do it and I'm going to attain Dharma today, you attain Dharma today. I mean, it's like that. Okay, you get all the way to the end point. So confident is a very important part of this. You can do it. Everybody can do it. Do it contentedly. Really important. I've noticed that when this quality is absent, you probably see darkness, but if the quality is there, you're more likely to see brightness. Contentness means being happy with what you have, not wanting more than this, not wanting it to be brighter, clearer, steadier, deeper, or anything else. Just happy with this. Just this is okay. Just this is happy. I'm enjoying this. Okay. Just that, this contentment, and that will very much develop the image. Another aspect of that is being neutral or indifferent to the image, which means not being excited by it. When it changes, the image will change. And as it changes, you don't want to react to those changes. You don't want to get excited by them or start analyzing them, get interested in them. Oh, it's got brighter. Oh, it's appeared. I can see it now. These kind of things. Even those little reactions make it disappear. Everybody gets this, okay? They get a really good experience inside, and then they react to it, and it disappears. For example, one guy from our Thursday night group, he got the image. It wasn't in the Thursday night, it was during the week. He got the image of a crystal ball, and then another crystal ball coming out the center of it, and another one, infinite number of crystal balls. It only lasted a short period of time because he reacted to it. And everybody does, you know, but with practice, you want to try and maintain a neutral mind, okay, just letting it pass as if nothing was occurring, indifferent to it. And quietly, meaning without thinking, without analysis, without expectation, with a still, quiet mind. And to try and do it delicately is to try and use it just similar to the mantra. The mantra, we don't do samma arahang. It's just a background sound of samahang, 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 which is a subconscious mind is looping it around by itself. In the same way, when we're recollecting the mental object, we're not using a deliberate act of will or intention every time. We have to put it on auto repeat as well. So you just, particularly if you're practicing this during the day with other activities, you'll gain this habit of being able to do it as a habit, as a subconscious thing that you don't have to, you can do everything else at the same time. So you're just subconsciously recollecting it at the same time. You can do that while you're meditating. It will help a lot. Okay, well, that will make it delicate. The subconscious mind is delicate. The conscious mind is not delicate. That's what we mean by softly and gently. And being respectful with what you're seeing, not looking at its faults and imperfections, but overlooking those, like I said. But it's not very bright. It's supposed to be bright. It's not clear. It's mind cloudy and so on. Okay, don't look at the faults of it. All right? Look past them. Look to the empty center of it. Look at it with loving kindness. Having a different attitude towards it. Be positive. And in a very ordinary way, like I described, a very ordinary, natural way. And the center of it, empty center of it, is more important. If you do start to see it, particularly if you see something complicated like the Buddha image, don't pay attention to the surface of it. Pay attention to the empty center of it. Okay, it's very, very important here. Okay, if the mind is focused at the center of the image, the mind will go to the center of the body. If the mind is focused on the edge of the image, it will go to the edge of the body. It kind of responds to this. So you want to pay attention to the center of the image. And if there's a new image that arises, we stay at the center of that new image. We don't expand with the old image. We always stay at the center, whatever's happening. And then there will be a new one pop up and a new one pop up. We stay at the center of that one, the center of that one. This is what we call the middle way. A road or pathway through the middle of all of these things, at the middle of the body. We think of the object without force. We're not making it do anything, without expectation that it should be the same as last time. It won't be. Every time it tends to be different. Without analysis. So why is it? Yeah, I can see it so easily today. Why is that? Do that afterwards when you're writing your meditation experience diary. Without direction, trying to make it go in a certain way. Whatever it wants to do, let it unfold by itself. Without thinking, without mental chatter of commentating on what you're going. Oh, I'm getting steadier. Oh, I'm getting better. Oh, I'm getting, leave all that kind of thing out. Without thinking. And without forgetting about it, so that you, unless it's the kind of forgetting because you're just becoming really, really still, then yes, okay. But if it's forgetting because you're daydreaming about something else, thinking about something else, that's loss of mindfulness. So we want to develop mindfulness, which is a skill. It's like a muscle. You need to train it. So that will help us to wander less. Where do we think of it? Pick one of the 7 bases of the mind. You don't have to do it just at the center of the body. If you're not ready to do that, particularly for beginners, I do suggest you try it out at the first base of the mind until you can get that, and the second one for a while. Maybe like do one day at the first base and then the next day at the second base, first then second. Slowly make your way to it over a week or even longer. Some people find it quite difficult to get inside. The first 2 they can sort of do, but going into the center of the head, find that tricky. Center of the body, they find that tricky. So if you work your way through the 7 bases and stay at the one that you're able to do until you get more competent or get more skill at it, more experience, then that's fine. But in the end, you'll be at the center of the body, which is 2 finger widths above the navel. But you don't have to be overly precise about it. Just keep it somewhere in the center of the body, in the belly. If you get too worried about the center, just make it bigger so it fills up your whole belly, and then you'll forget about being too precise about it. Some people do. They chase it around the whole belly, chase it left, chase it right, up and down, trying to find the center. Okay? So in practice, it's anywhere in the belly. A big mistake, as I said, is to worry about this location. You have to have trust and confidence that you found it already, right? Or that wherever it is right now, that will do. That is fine. Because otherwise you will mentally fidget, moving it around the belly all over the place. In fact, it will go to the center anyway by itself. As the mind becomes more still, even if it's in front of you, as the mind becomes still, it comes into the center of the body by itself. There's a connection between stillness and the center of the body anyway. So don't worry about it. And what you do see, just Gently pay attention to the center of it, as if there was a tiny star there, which there probably will be in the end, but just not at the beginning. Just don't pay attention to the exterior of the object. When do we think of it? Again and again and again. Okay, all the time, continuously. And use it with the mantra as well. Though I suggest that not necessarily with the mantra all the time, maybe at the beginning, but as the mind goes deeper into theta, into the state of mind where there's more daydreamy images coming up, it will probably start to feel unnatural to recollect the mantra, Samaraha. Think of it with your eyes open and your eyes closed, when you're breathing in, when you're breathing out, in all postures, meaning all day, all the time. That's what we call mindfulness, which is a different aspect. There's meditation and there's mindfulness. Meditation is when you're sitting down doing it. Mindfulness is all the rest of the time. While we're walking, talking, eating, washing, listening, watching TV, driving, whatever, all activities are in the end possible. And to the extent at the beginning, it's recollection, it's mindfulness practice, which we'll practice in a 2-day retreat. But later on, it just sticks and it's always there anyway. So it gets a lot easier. All day, even all night is possible. I know some people to manage this, quite advanced. But what we do is we expand it before we go to sleep, and then we fall asleep inside of it. Later on, you don't even fall asleep. You can stay meditating all night long. Advanced practice. Can't think of it? Don't worry. Be happy. All right. Central. Most people can't think of it at the beginning. But if you do what I've been explaining, okay, waiting and do the various practices I've explained, you'll probably be able to visualize it a little bit. 5% clear is fine. 1% clear is fine. It'll grow with practice. Until if you wait until the mind is starting to daydream and it's gone into theta, you'll find it a lot easier to recollect it at that point. So try and get it out of beta, of chatty thoughts first. Still the mind first. Use the mantra. Okay, Samahang, until you get into theta and still the daydreamy thoughts start coming. To get out of beta, you're going to have to let go of everything else. Okay, one main reason you can't think about it is think of a crystal ball is you're still thinking about other things. All right. Relax the body. Again, you're being locked into beta because you're not relaxed yet, so you can't think of it. You have to be very relaxed and comfortable to be able to think of this. You have to be so relaxed you're dissolving into the environment. That's the stage when you start thinking about a crystal ball easily. Be confident about it and be satisfied with little, with whatever you already have. Don't use your physical eyes to look at it. So many people, for some reason, because it's a visual thing, they actually use their physical eyes to look at it. They literally look downwards, they cross their eyes, they get all tense around the eyes. Even with the mental eyes, you don't want to try and look at it. You don't want to pay too much attention to it at all. If you do this, the image will progress from being what we call a training sign or a parikama nimitta, which is we focus on an external object, for example, the Buddha or crystal ball, sun, moon, star, and so on. And then we shut our eyes and we try to recollect that. That initial recollected image will be very rough and indistinct. But with practice, or sometimes with just a bit of luck, it will become 100% clear and steady, as if you're seen with the eyes, or even clearer than seen with the eyes, quite often. So, and it will stick, and it will stick to the extent of sticking the whole session. You open your eyes at the end of meditation, and it's still there. And then how long it will linger for will depending on our mindfulness in particular. But it may well stick there for months. It may well stick there for the rest of your life. And at that point, it then tunes you into happiness and peace as a general daily experience. This is why we use it. With practice, it will also develop into what we call counterpart sign or patipaga nimitta, which is it starts to shine and it starts to look beautiful, and it even starts to expand by itself or is able to be expanded and shrunk down. And what it will do is it will start popping up one after another, all all day long, expanding and expanding, popping up. What happens after that? Darkness will become bright. Object that appears rough and unsteady becomes steady, clear and bright, draws you into the center of it. Another object appears from the center of that one. Each one popping up faster, clearer and brighter than the other one, until it becomes like a tunnel, drawing you into deep peace, deep ecstasy at this point, bliss, indescribable happiness, most people describe it as. And then you can master that even all day, every day. And finally, when you get very advanced, you then learn how to expand it and contract it deliberately, making the mind very, very focused and delicate. So there's a little star at the center which will pull you in. And then you have this deep experience of going beyond just visual images into going into the inner dimensions, which I'll describe on the course on inner experiences on Thursdays, where you just attain to the real Dharma sphere, which is not just a 2D or 3D image, but is multi-dimensionally seen from all directions at the same time with indescribable happiness.